Hello. Welcome on back to my channel. I hope y'all are doing well. Back with us today, I have my beautiful friend, Colleen Heidemann, and on her, I'm going to share with you a makeup routine that will have you instantly looking and feeling refreshed and feeling confident too. So without further ado, if you want to learn how I created this look right here, then keep on watching. So to begin, I'm using the Elemis Pro Collagen Cleansing Balm and using this to cleanse and prep Colleen's skin with. I do this by applying on a small bit of it, maybe about a quarter size amount or so, to the different points of the face before massaging it in really well. I talk more about this product on my channel more than probably any other skincare product because I am their biggest fan. I love using this on clients before applying makeup because it not only cleanses the skin, but it does so in a way where it doesn't leave the skin feeling dehydrated or stripped of its natural oils. If anything, it leaves the skin feeling more hydrated and softer than it did before using it. As you'll see in the process here, it starts out as a cleansing balm, breaking down any makeup or skincare that she had on beforehand, transforms into a gentle cleansing milk when I add water to it, and then I'll completely wipe it away with a washcloth that I've let run under some warm water. It's important here to try not to tug and pull. We want to be gentle on the skin, especially that thin, delicate skin around the eyes. If you haven't tried this product yet before, it's one of my must-haves. I personally use it every single day to remove my makeup, and now I can't go without it. And I will say that Elemis has different ones with, different scents. I believe they have a floral scent, a rose scent. They have one that's completely unscented for those who prefer that. But I'm using their original formula here because it's my favorite with the eucalyptus and the chamomile. It just smells like a spa. I absolutely love it. All right, moving along, I am using this Tatcha Dewy Skin Cream to further moisturize her skin with. You may already be sensing the trend here that a lot of what I'm doing in today's tutorial is targeted towards moisturizing the skin. Many of my more mature clients expressed to me that their skin kind of just feel like it's lacking that glow and luminosity, which is why achieving that with these products is today's goal. Now that her skin is plump and hydrated, I'm going to use this City Lips Clear Lip Plumper and use this to hydrate her lips with as well by applying on just a bit of this. A little trick I like using here is bringing this up just outside her natural lip line. Not a lot, but just enough that I'll notice the finer lines around the lip line become a little more smooth, which will help the lipstick we use later glide right on. So this helps plump, smooth, and hydrate the lips while also creating that rosy tint of color. For foundation, I'm using the Haus Lab Skin Tech Foundation in the shade 230 Light Medium Cool and applying this on with a sponge. I also absolutely love this foundation for anyone, but specifically on more mature skin. It has that feel to it that feels like you're just wearing you're just wearing skincare. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't feel like you're wearing a ton of foundation. It just feels like you're wearing a serum or a lightweight moisturizer. And even better, it looks that way too. It looks extremely natural on the skin, and it has a skin-like sheen to it, which is exactly what I'm looking for today. You can build this up to be full coverage if you like, but I'm keeping this on the more light to medium coverage side, keeping in mind that I'm also going to be using a concealer afterwards. And what's most important here when it comes to choosing the foundation is you use something that's hydrating. If you have fine lines and wrinkles, I don't like using foundations that are marketed to having a completely matte finish or claim to be extremely long wearing and durable for 24-hour wear or something like that, because while of course it looks great on a 20-something-year-old model, once we reach a particular age, our skin needs to be catered to differently. We need those moisturizing components in the formula so the foundation doesn't crack and look cakey around those fine lines, which, as you can see here, is not the case. Her skin looks radiant and refreshed and ready for the next step, which is concealer. Today I'm using the Elizabeth Arden Skin Caring Concealer in the shade Light Medium and applying this just to the inner part of the under eye area before I blend this out with a sponge. Now, this is a concealer I just started recently using, and I find that it does have that skincare property to it, as the name suggests. The formula has hyaluronic acid, which, to be honest, that's nothing revolutionary. A lot of makeup products do, but it also has the vitamin C, the vitamin E, and I find that it is quite hydrating, but without feeling heavy. Now, of course, that comes down to how much you apply on, but overall, it is lightweight and it blends beautifully without settling into fine lines. I chose a shade here that's a couple shades lighter than her foundation, which will brighten the under eye and give us that awakened and refreshed look. Next up, to blush up the cheeks, I'm using this Rare Beauty Soft Pinch Liquid Blush in the shade Happy. I've applied this to the back of my hand as we see here, working the bristles of this brush into the pigment before lightly building this up onto her cheeks. This blush is extremely pigmented, so a little goes a long way here. What I love about using a liquid blush is that it works beautifully with the other liquid complexion products we've used up until this point, like the foundation and the concealer. My rule of thumb is to apply your liquid and cream products first, and then once you use powder to set those products into place, stick to only powder products afterwards, like powder blush and powder bronzer. And this will just prevent the formulas from clashing and creating a weird cakey consistency. So liquids first and then powders. Once I have this blended, I'm then using this Laura Mercier translucent setting powder to set the under eye concealer into place. Now, if you've experienced your under eye concealer starting to crease or settle into fine lines, you'll want to make sure that's blended out first before using the powder, because what the powder is doing is it's locking it into whatever place it's in. So think of it almost like hairspray. You brush out the hair, you tame the frizz, you get the volume and curl pattern to whatever place you want it to be in, and then you'll use the hairspray to lock it into that shape. It's very similar here with the powder. And you'll notice I'm using a powder puff to apply this on with. This is also really important. It comes down to personal preference, but I like pressing powder in for this step. I don't like dragging and sweeping setting powder on across the skin. Just using delicate pressing motions to set this makeup and mattify it in the areas that I want, like the under eyes, the jawline, around the mouth, and T-zone area, but avoiding it in other areas like the high points of her cheekbones, which is where I like to keep that soft shine to the skin, because that's what's going to give us this, finished look that looks refreshed, luminous, and youthful. After this, I'm using this One Size Light Bronzer Trio and lightly applying this on with a large fluffy face brush to the perimeter of her face, like below the cheekbones, jawline, and forehead. This is about as close as it's going to get to contouring today. The truth is, while contouring, if done right, can look amazing, something as simple as using a touch of bronzer can be just as effective, and in my opinion, gives us more control than using a cream contour product. Sometimes, even myself, I go a little too heavy-handed with contour. It can look great on camera, but it can also look a little too heavy and unnatural in the light of day. Furthermore, contouring adds shadows and hollows out the face. And most often than not, once we start reaching that particular age, our face already starts hollowing out around the temples and cheeks. And it's that fullness we once had that looks youthful. So we don't want to hollow it out even more. And here, as you see, I'm using the baking method by placing a touch more powder to the under eye area and jawline. This powder will catch any of the fallen eyeshadow we may experience while doing the eye makeup. And more than anything, I just wanted to show that the baking method can work on those with fine lines. Everyone's different, of course, but the only difference here that I'm making is I'm using a little less powder than I usually would and being a bit more strategic in my placement, avoiding the upper cheekbone area so we don't lose that beautiful sheen to the skin. To start on the brows, I'm using this Anastasia Beverly Hills Dipbrow Pomade in the shade Taupe and using this to slowly begin building up the brow shape. If you're someone with very sparse brows like our model Colleen, What's so great about this is that you have the freedom to create whatever brow shape you want. So what I like to do with Colleen is I start by creating a blueprint for the shape I'm looking to achieve, and then I'll build on that for the fullness and density, because I know she loves a bold brow, and I do too. I think it can really pull together a look and adds a touch of youthfulness, but you know, take everything I say with a grain of salt. I'm not trying to focus this tutorial so much on looking 20 years younger with makeup or something like that. I don't want it to be so much about looking younger per se, because aging is fabulous. So I want this look to be about looking like yourself, but on your very best day, after you've gotten a great night's sleep or after a nice vacation, feeling and looking refreshed and well rested. That, to me, looks great on anyone and everyone, because there's only so much that makeup can do. And I'm telling you this as a makeup artist, someone who does this for a living. There is not one makeup or skincare product on the market that's just magically gonna erase wrinkles and take 30 years off. There's just not. So the best thing we can do is accept the beauty in aging and use the products and techniques that complement those beautiful fine lines rather than compete with it. You know what I mean? And by the way, you saw there a moment ago, I grabbed for this Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Powder Duo in the shade Taupe, and I'm using that to set the pomade into place that we had just used, and also to add in more density to this brow. To begin on the eye makeup, I'm using this Bobbi Brown eyeshadow stick in the shade Bone and placing this right in the inner corner there of the eye and bringing it up halfway across the lid before diffusing out the edges with an eyeshadow brush. This product is fantastic to get that brightening effect. You'll even see me use this in a moment in the waterline, but yeah, it's very easy to apply on. It's completely matte, and when it dries down, it doesn't budge or move. These shadow sticks come in many different shades, but I'm using this shade here today to not only brighten, but also to act as the foundation for the eyeshadow we apply on top of it. It'll help the shadow adhere to the surface, and it will extend its longevity. Next, I'm using this shade here from the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions eyeshadow palette and using this to lightly build up some dimension in the eye. I do this by placing it on the outer half corner and blend it upwards through the crease. I'm not bringing this up all the way across the lid to the inner corner because we want that area to remain bright. Once we have this blended out to our liking, I'm then using this shade here from the same eyeshadow palette and placing that onto the same inner corner area that we had applied the cream eyeshadow stick onto. What's nice about this shade is that it not only has that brightness to it, but it also has these tiny little shimmer particles in it. But they're so finely milled that your eyelids won't look like there's a disco ball on them, you know? They're so subtle, but noticeable enough that in person, you can definitely see that there's something special happening there, and it just catches the light so beautifully. And for the lower lid, I'm taking that first shadow we had used and running that along the outer half of the lower lash line. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to give it some dimension and make it cohesive with the upper lid. Now, using this cream shadow from the palette, I'm wiggling this through the upper lash line with a flat eyeshadow brush to give it some structure and the illusion of fuller lashes. This palette I'm using is pretty unique for this reason. It has two cream eyeshadow formulas that you can use on the eyes with the powder formulas. Today, I'm using it in place of an eyeliner, and then I'll set it into place with the deep brown eyeshadow that's also in the palette, which is what we see happening here. The goal is to make it perfectly imperfect. I want that diffused, smoked out liner effect. So I do that by wiggling this brush through the lash line and lifting it upwards. Of course, you can use black or gray or whichever color you want, but there's something so soft and effortless in how a brown eyeliner looks, especially during the daytime. And it's quick too. Like this eye makeup here has only taken a couple of products, a couple of brushes, and maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Also, if you like, you can use some of that brown shadow to place along the lower lash line as well for added dimension. Now remember that shadow stick we had used on the upper lid? Well, I'm heading back to that and I'm running that along the lower waterline, which will brighten this area, cover the redness many of us have here, and give an overall opened eye, awakened effect. Doesn't that look really nice? It's subtle, but I think it makes a really big difference. Now moving right along, I'm using the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Push-Up Lashes Mascara and running this through her upper lashes. I'm being sure to really get in there at the root of the lash line because this will help the false lashes we apply on afterwards blend seamlessly with her natural lashes. And if you like, you can apply this onto your bottom lashes too, which is what I usually do, but today, I'm switching it up a bit. I'm really loving how clean and simple the lower lash line is. I think the shadow we used is adding in enough structure. So I'm going to skip bottom lash mascara today. And the false lashes I'm using here are in the style Sunburst from Raquel Beauty. And I'm popping these right on. We are both so happy with how these look. I almost didn't use false lashes today, but we decided to go for it, and I'm really happy we did. These look incredible. It elevates the look completely, and they blend in perfectly at the lash line. I'll link them down below along with everything else I'm using in today's tutorial, of course, but it's important to know that if you do end up getting these lashes, don't throw them out after only wearing them once. You can reuse them many of times. As long as you properly clean them and take care of them, they can be used again and again. So now, as you see here, I'm wiping off that powder that we've let sit here to bake. Heading back to the blush, I'm using this Makeup by Mario powder blush in the shade Creamy Peach and using this to reinforce the liquid blush we had used earlier by dusting this onto the apples of her cheeks. Sometimes, not sometimes, most times, blush kind of gets lost in translation throughout the makeup process, and I often find myself taking a step back, seeing how everything is coming together, and deciding to go back in with a touch more powder blush to finish off the complexion. To add some glow to the skin, I'm using this Pat McGrath highlighter, and with an eyeshadow brush, I'm applying this right on. Notice here how I'm being a bit more strategic with the placement. I'm keeping this right at the apple of her cheek and kind of avoiding the fine lines around the outer corner of her eye. I find that highlight can sometimes accentuate fine lines and texture. So by keeping this in areas that have a smoother surface, we're still getting that glowy effect to the skin, but without emphasizing areas in an unflattering way. Next up, to begin on lips, I'm using this Anastasia Beverly Hills liquid lipstick in the shade Crush, and I'm using this to trace the borders of her lips with. Since day one, you've heard me rant and rave about using a matte liquid lipstick for those with fine lines around the mouth. The reason being is because it completely dries down, it lasts all day, and it doesn't bleed. Something else, which you may have noticed I did earlier in the tutorial, to prevent liquid lipstick bleeding is using a light amount of setting powder around the lips. And using a matte liquid lipstick formula, by the way, doesn't mean that we have to keep it matte. We're just using it for that long-lasting effect. Then I'll head back to our City Lips Clear Lip Plumping Gloss to add right on top for a lasting shine that makes the lips look hydrated and plump. I really like this overall soft wash of color to the lips. It's easy to maintain, it's feminine, it looks soft and natural, but also flattering to the rest of the color story we have going on with the eye makeup and blush. It creates a nice balance and it looks good on everybody. You can never go wrong with a pinky nude lip. Now, once I have this applied, I can finally head over to our last product that we're using today, which is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Setting Spray, and using this to set and lock the makeup into place, which makes this the final step in how we created this soft and refreshed makeup look on the naturally beautiful Colleen. There we have it, kids. I hope you all enjoyed today's tutorial. If you did, be sure to give this video a big old thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also check out more of my work on my Instagram at Painted by Spencer. And until next time, I'll see you soon.